Unsane is a film that fits very well in the genre of experimental horror films. I think that it's a film that's going to be remembered with the Blair Witch Projects and the Saws and other films like those that take a really unique approach to the genre, to the idea of films in general. I think it can sit among those and hold its head high. I think it's even better than some of those. However, that means it also has the pitfalls of those same genres of films. It has a really intense, interesting setup, but also a lot of what happens in it just doesn't make any sense when you think about it later. It's a fantastic ride, but when you stop to kind of think about it, you kind of, look at the man behind the curtain and you realize maybe that wasn't as well constructed as I thought it was. This isn't to say that this is a bad movie. Like I said at the beginning, this is actually a really good movie, and I was surprised at how good it was going to be. For those of you who don't know, this is a film that was shot entirely on an iPhone 7 Plus in secrecy by a director who didn't really even tell anybody that he was doing this except for the people that were involved. For those of you who might be familiar with really bad films, it kind of reminds me in a lot of ways what The Room or Birdemic could have been like if the people that made it actually had skill and talent and knew what they were doing. I feel like this movie shows what you can do with a really low budget if you've crafted your skill well enough. This is a movie that was made on a shoestring budget. It only had $1.5 million going into it, and I realize that sounds like a lot, but to make any film that's going to be like a featured theatrical release film, that's almost nothing. Especially considering how much they must have just paid the actors alone. And whatever that cost was, it was worth it because the actors are really good in this. Claire Foy, who plays the main character, is someone who really comes off as unlikable at first, but you really identify with her struggle to figure out what's going on around her. To give a short summary of what the film is about, since a lot of people probably haven't heard about it, Unsane is about a woman who feels like she's being stalked by someone from another town where she had moved away from, and she goes to a counselor to talk about it, to figure out what's going on and how to best treat the issues that she's having, and fills out some forms only to be confined in a mental hospital. And then she feels that in this mental hospital, her stalker is working there. And so the whole film is about, is she crazy, is she not crazy? What's interesting is that in this case, they actually really resolve that premise about halfway through the film, yet it still will really hold your attention. I think that's a real credit to the crafting of this story, that your interesting premise can be thrown out halfway through the film, and it's still an interesting movie that really engages me almost the entire time. Joshua Leonard, who plays sort of the antagonist, Joshua Leonard, who plays the antagonist of the film, is also fantastic. There's a great scene with just the two of them, and wow, I wonder how many takes they must have done just to get it that perfect because it's just so good to watch. And outside of these two fantastic leads, you've got two supporting leads in Juno Temple and Jay Farrow. Juno Temple is really good at playing just this crazy character who is very belligerent, but Jay Farrow, who basically plays the only person who's kind and good to our main character, he is fantastic. I'd never seen Jay Farrow in anything before, but I really look forward to watching his career. I feel like this was just such a fantastic way to get to meet him. He was so engaging and interesting in the film, and I just loved watching his character. He just did such a good job with it, and it was a joy watching him on the screen. It's not very often that you really see an actor and you're just like, wow, that actor was fantastic. But that's how I felt after the film. There's very minimal music throughout most of it, and I think that really works well with the sort of real captured feel that comes with shooting off of an iPhone 7. The editing is also pretty minimal, except for in a couple of cases, and I feel like that works really well because it stands out so much when there's so minimal editing that in these scenes where there is a lot of editing, it just feels even more powerful and disorienting, which is exactly what they want, I'm sure. I think the film's pacing is pretty good. It's a little slow at the beginning, but once you get through that first little bit, it really starts to pick up, and I think that it finds its groove, finds exactly what it wants. That's a really difficult thing when it takes you almost 20 minutes to kind of get into the meat of the film, and you might lose your audience, but I feel like it does a good job of presenting that interesting scenario of making sure that you get that attention back. So as far as would I recommend seeing this in theater, or, so as far as my recommendation on seeing it, if you're a fan of psychological thriller, of horror films, then I think that you should make sure to see this. If not, I would still recommend that you check this out, maybe at home. I don't know if the immersive feeling is going to feel the same on a television screen as it does in a theater. I'd be interested to see if this experience translates well outside of a theatrical setting. I just don't know. And that's my review for Unsane. I'm sure not a lot of people have heard of it or even necessarily considered it, so I hope that this review was helpful for you to decide whether or not this was the film for you. And if you've had a chance to see it, why don't you leave a comment down below? Do you think that this is a film that can stand with those really good horror films, or do you think I'm wrong on that? Also, if you have a friend who's a fan of these horror films, then why don't you share this video with them and help make them aware of this film, because maybe they might enjoy it too. And if you're a fan of these videos, why don't you hit the subscription button and the notification bell to make sure that you know when all of my reviews are put up. And until the next review, I'll see you then.